Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Fantasy Football. Today, we are breaking down 6 NFC home games. Actually, we snuck in an AFC home game in there, but Denver at Philadelphia, Tampa Bay at Seattle, Giants at the Saints. I'm going to let the chat decide how to fill in the blank on something in a moment. Miami at Carolina, Houston at Baltimore, and Tennessee at Arizona. I am so confident that the Giants are going to beat the Saints, even though they are underdogs. I am so confident that if they lose, I will blank on the show next week. And I'm only going to read the appropriate ones. But you want to think about it in the chat? I'm willing to make a bet against nobody. The Giants are definitely going to 2-3 with a win over the Saints. I'm feeling it. Maybe I'm just feeling good because that was a very fun Thursday night game. San Francisco 26, Rams 23. Did he make the right decision in going for it?
Yes.
Of course. It's just a bad play.
You know, I wonder, I haven't read this. I read the recap article. I haven't come across this. I'm wondering if the new kickoff rules factored into his decision. Because we have seen how easy it is for teams to return it to the 35 or even better and get in field goal range pretty quickly. And San Francisco wouldn't have had much trouble kicking a game-winning field goal. I'm wondering if that had anything to do with the decision for McVay. But yeah, there you go. All right. Fun game.
The play call was terrible, though.
Why was the play call terrible? Sure. To run the ball? What's so bad about that?
Where he decided to run it.
I think, first off, Stafford was on fire. Kyron was making so many plays out of the backfield. Like, you put the ball in your best player's hand at that point.
Puka's hands?
Stafford's hands.
That would have been better than what they did.
Kyron was having a great game.
Kyron's had a great game catching the ball too. Except he had dropped, but the play designs were just wide open all over the place. Like,
I struggle with the pass plays on fourth down when the quarterback can't move. Because he has pretty much no chance of running for it. But okay. I'm looking for shave 3 lines in my head, shave lines in my eyebrows, stop talking about tennis.
That one.
Eat a sandwich while leaving the stick in. We haven't talked about that in a really long time. Wear the Star Trek shirt for a week straight. Give blood on air and pass out when the Giants lose. Sing a Taylor Swift song. All right, we'll consider it. All right,
there's one in there where it suggested giving me money.
I didn't see that. It was funny. I must have missed
that. Sure you didn't.
All right, so Brock Purdy is week to week, by the way. And Puka Nacua is the first wide receiver in NFL history with more than 50 catches in his team's first 5 games, by the way. And the 49ers lost 2 more starting defensive linemen in the game, by the way. But Mac Jones has scored 26 or more fantasy points in 2 of his 3 starts. He's thrown 39 or more passes in all 3 of his starts. He's at Tampa Bay next week. We'll talk about him during the waiver wire show for sure. But what do we think about Kendrick Bourne? 4% rostered, 10 catches, 142 yards. Is there anything to this? And Jake Tonga's had a good game too. Kittle eligible to return next week. But Jamie, as you evaluate can you take anything away from this game, I guess, from a fantasy standpoint?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mac Jones looks great. I wonder if I don't think there's going to be a quarterback controversy, but he's played very well now in his time as the starter. It just goes to show like the system is so good. I do wonder if Mac Jones, from a future perspective, so anybody that's in Superflex Dynasty leagues that picked him up this week because he was dropped, will hold him because, look what these teams have done for these quarterbacks. Daniel Jones now coming off of half a season with Minnesota, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, like these guys get good coaching and they look better. And so maybe Mac Jones has that opportunity in the right place. I think Kendrick Bourne clearly is somebody that's going to be a factor if there's no Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings next week. You have to buy into that. You do have the likelihood of George Kittle coming back, so keep that in mind. But if you picked up Kendrick Bourne, you should definitely be holding on to him.
Yeah.
I don't know what else. McCaffrey's awesome.
Well, are we buying into Stafford? He's got 2 straight games.
I don't know if you wanted the Rams. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Stafford would play well, mostly because of the 49ers injuries and what they've looked like defensively. So it's more a play against San Francisco at this point. I know Dave was concerned about the history for Stafford, which made sense. But just looking at what this team looks like at this point, like you can play your quarterbacks against San Francisco right now. So Stafford moving forward, it'll probably be a game-by-game basis, but he's certainly in the mix with bye weeks now. Lamar Jackson's down. Brock Purdy's down. So guys that were starting quarterbacks are on the cusp of starting quarterbacks. And then you factor in the guys who are struggling. Like, you love the way Stafford is playing at this point.
He played phenomenal last night. The reason why I was especially worried about Stafford was because I didn't know how much he'd actually have to throw in the game. I didn't think that this game would be close at all. I thought the 49ers would struggle. Did not think that they'd come out on fire like they did. The first half was amazing. And so Stafford had to step up, and boy, did he ever. So I feel like an idiot for not having him ranked nearly as high as you did, or even as Heath did. How about their matchups coming up after this week? It's at Baltimore. We know their defense is banged up. If it stays that way, you got to love Stafford in that matchup. And then Jacksonville. And then after the bye, it's New Orleans. Yes, this is absolutely a guy you can count on as a fantasy starter. At least you can consider him with other guys that you might have on your team.
Okay. I'm not sure that you're talking about in the short term, you can count on him as a fantasy starter.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the long term, I mean, you got to remember, he's thrown over 40 passes each of the last 2 games. I don't know if that's the regular, then great. He's thrown for 375 or more yards and 3 touchdowns. Usually if he's in like the low 30s or 33-ish pass attempts, he gives you 0 rushing yards. So he's a streamer usually, but maybe we're onto something here because he's looking great. Devontae Adams has been good. I mean, a little bit of a disappointing game because you expect a little more than 13.8 fantasy points, but you'll take it. 11 targets. His catch rate is less than 50%. We're 5 weeks in. It's weird, but he looks good out there.
How do you feel about your terrible trade?
I don't get your take. Like, I traded for a running back who had been better than the running back I had, and a wide receiver who had been better than the wide receiver I had, and I got a high-end handcuff, and you're telling me I lost the trade. I just don't understand. You'll take 5 for 88 on 11 targets from Jamar Chase this week. I do not get where you're coming from on this.
I just enjoy busting your balls. It's fun.
I get it. I did see a good, if the Giants lose, I have to agree with all of Dan's terrible takes until he figures it out.
That's great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Dan's going to listen to today's show, but if he doesn't, I will do that. Last thing. Are we worried about Kyren Williams with the fumble? He has now fumbled in 2 straight games.
I think if you're concerned, you just look at Blake Corum and the bad, drop that he had and the fumble he had as well. So it's not like he had a perfect game. If he had a perfect game, then I think you'd be a little bit concerned. So the fact that they went right back to Kyren after he fumbled is still telling. He's got to do better. I mean, I don't know how much longer Sean McVay will, continue to deal with that because it cost them the game essentially. 2 key fumbles like he had, but still, it's not like Blake Corum did anything to help himself.
Is Jarquez Hunter on the radar next week when we're making our waiver claims? Does he get an opportunity because of?
I'm not going to.
Of Corum's fumble. Corum technically didn't fumble, but everybody saw the play. Mm-hmm. And after that, he was essentially benched. He didn't get another carry the rest of the game. He only played 4 snaps the rest of the game. And if Kyren keeps fumbling near the goal line, I just can't help but wonder if that dude gets an opportunity sometime down the line in the deepest of leagues. If he's available, I might consider him.
All right. One more thing, guys. I feel like I haven't done a good enough job on this show talking about desperation plays because I was desperate and I picked up Kendrick Bourne last night. And that's not in a super deep league. That's just a league where I have buys and injuries and people need to pick up these types of players sometimes. So if you think of any throughout this show when we preview the games, to say a desperation play, this guy could have 5 targets or something like that. Just fire away. On Sunday, we've got FFT Express. We're going to record about 7:45. Should be published by about 8:15 a.m. Then we've got 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. On YouTube.com, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. And then noon to 1 p.m. On, again, youtube.com /fantasy football today. So 8:30 a.m. to 9:30, and then noon to 1 Eastern time. We'll be answering your starter sit questions. Please join us. Also, just keep an eye on CBS Sports HQ throughout the day, especially from noon to 1, where Dave and Jamie are going to be on giving advice. And we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you then. An email from Cody. Cody sent me an article from Yahoo, which was really just talking about an interview that David Montgomery did with Kay Adams, where he talked about how excited he is to play in his hometown of Cincinnati. He has never played in Cincinnati. His family is going to be there. He mentioned that his sister a year and a half ago got into a car accident and is paralyzed from the neck down. And she is going to be able to see him play, I think, for the first time. So it's like a huge game for David Montgomery. I wouldn't ordinarily bring that up, but I'm feeling this vibe here, and now I'm still rooting for him so hard. So it's just, if you're on the fence with David Montgomery, this is a really, really important game for him. He wants to show up and show out for his family. That's going to be attendance in his hometown. All right.
And the Bengals suck.
Yeah. News and notes. Lamar Jackson not expected to play this week. It seems like he's unlikely to play next week against the Rams. Jaden Daniels starting. Baker Mayfield back at practice. Running back news. We know about the Cardinals. Bucky Irving still hasn't practiced. We're not expecting him as of now. But the big news, Chuba Hubbard, according to reports, not expected to play. So they've got Miami and then Dallas and then the Jets. Don't know how long this will be. He has a calf injury. It could linger. Go pick up Rico Dowdle. Dave, where's Rico Dowdle in your we have this game coming up, but where is Rico Dowdle in your rankings?
20th. Number 2 fantasy running back.
Jamie?
Right now I think it's 18, 19, right in that range. He had 10 games last season with at least 15 total touches, and he scored 14.6 PPR points or more in 6 of them. So he's shown he could do well when given an extended workload. The matchup against Miami is fantastic. They're top 5 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. So unless you fear Trevor Etienne, most likely as the new backup, taking a lot of work away from Dowdle, it should be an opportunity for him to dominate touches and have a big day.
I think that's what we should count on. Who do you like better to stash? Because you were a Trevor Etienne guy when we were in the preseason. Would you rather have Etienne or Isaiah Davis, Jamie?
Isaiah Davis now, because he's one step away from being the guy with Braylon Allen on IR. I think unless his injury for Hubbard is long term, it doesn't sound like it. So I would just anticipate him still being third.
Okay. You're going to start Dowdle over Michael Carter, I'm sure.
Dowdle, so we'll find out maybe before the show is over. Hopefully by the end of mailbag today, Bucky Irving status. So I'm writing a story just for the site. You can check it out, cbsports.com, just making sense of all these situations. I'm going to have it ranked Dowdle 1, Rashad White 2, Michael Carter 3 of the replacement options.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wide receiver news. Deebo Samuel has not been practicing. He was working off to the side, but he did make the trip to Los Angeles. So I think we're still expecting Deebo to play. Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are out. I don't even know if I'd call it desperation at this point, but I see a lot of people picking up Luke McCaffrey. So that's another guy, desperation play. Luke McCaffrey could be in line for a big role, especially if Deebo is out. But again, if Zach Ertz is available, you can look at him as well. Michael Pittman was downgraded to limited. We'll keep an eye on that. He has a hamstring injury. Alec Pierce practiced in full. Calvin Ridley missed practice again. Dallas Goedert returned to practice, but Brock Bowers missed practice. So he went from practicing in full last week, Brock Bowers, to limited on Wednesday to missing practice on Thursday. Are we concerned here about Brock Bowers and his availability?
Not yet, but today we'll be telling clearly. It's just not encouraging from his production standpoint and confidence standpoint. So you're not benching him unless you somehow manage to get Jake Ferguson and Brock Bowers on the same team. It's just these are the situations you hate when guys are playing but not healthy.
Okay, and Juwan Johnson was upgraded to limited, but also Foster Morrow and Taysom Hill were limited, so we'll see who ends up playing there. And we are worried about the Ravens defense. They are super beat up. Mm-hmm. Seattle's secondary is pretty beat up right now. We'll see if those guys end up playing. They got Tampa Bay. Detroit's secondary is beat up. They're at Cincinnati, although Terrion Arnold looks like he will play. And that's pretty much. Oh, and Trayvon Walker for the Jaguars. He had wrist surgery, but he might be able to play on Monday against Kansas City.
Just to go back to your Bowers note, you brought this up about Trey Tucker's 2 games where he was heavily involved, that he may have been dropped in some 10-team leagues and maybe even some 12-team leagues. It might not be a bad idea to go back to him, because if they are going to limit or be concerned about Bowers, then that's something. And obviously, if you're desperate, Michael Mayer.
Yeah. Tucker could be on the desperation list.
Right.
But he's rostered in probably too many leagues. I think Adam's looking for more for like the not in my league type guys.
Yeah, and what do I know? I really thought that Brock Bowers looked pretty good last week, running around. I thought he looked smoother and just better than he had in previous weeks. And now
maybe
he's
he
not
got
bad.
shaken up during the game.
Maybe.
Could
All right,
you
we're
give
gonna
up a bench player for Trey Tucker if you're desperate at receiver?
I think it's conceivable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll come back with one question for each game after this.
Saturday kicks off at noon, and it's big time. First, Air Force and Navy face off in Annapolis. Then it's big time at the Rose Bowl when UCLA hosts Penn State.
Okay, one question for each game. Denver's at Philadelphia. Rank the Philadelphia wide receivers versus the Denver running backs.
Brown's still at the top for me, but it's close between him and Dobbins. I'd give the lean to Dobbins in non-PPR. Devontae Smith is behind those guys, and RJ Harvey is significantly behind those three.
Dobbins 1, Brown 2, Smith 3, Harvey 4.
One more time. Smith. Okay, Dobbins.
The only difference
Dobbins,
is Jimmy's
Eagles
got
receivers,
Dobbins
Harvey.
over AJ in full PPR.
Okay. Tampa Bay is at Seattle. What are your thoughts on the Bucs running backs? We're assuming Bucky Irving is out. The Seahawks have not allowed a running back carry, longer than 13 yards this year. They have a great run defense. Jamie, what are your thoughts on the Bucs running backs?
They have a great run defense, and as I told you yesterday, they're one of 3 teams yet to allow a rushing touchdown to a running back.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are number 1 in most receptions allowed to running backs and number 1 in most receiving yards allowed to running backs. And so here comes Rachaad White coming off a 4-catch game, a guy that has 50 catches in every year of his career, and somebody who I think will have a lot of opportunities to make plays in the passing game. So I think White is a number 2 running back in PPR, a little bit lower in non-PPR. Maybe he'll be the first one, or Sean Tucker will be the first one to fall into the end zone against them running the ball. But from a passing downs perspective, I think we can see 5+ catches for Rachaad White, and his track record for the most part when he gets a lot of work has been very good. But will he get a lot of work in this game because of Tucker and maybe what the score could be if they're playing from behind? I do think that would favor him, but we'll see how this goes for Tampa Bay. But if there is no Bucky Irving, I think Rachaad White again. I would play him over Michael Carter. I'd play him behind Rico Dowdle of the backup guys this week.
I feel the exact same way. The only thing I'd want to point out is who the Seahawks have played, running backs that have caught well against them.
McCaffrey and Jalen Warren, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Warren, that's the game he had like a monster. Oh, maybe it's not the game that he had a monster play in. No, it is. Remember that big catch and run that Jalen Warren had? That was against Seattle in week 2, wasn't that?
Yep.
Okay.
So they're vulnerable there. I think you're counting on volume and targets for Rachaad White. Jamie summed it up very well.
Giants are at the Saints. Rank the wide receivers in this game. I'll tell you, the Giants give up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers, partially because they for some reason just see so many pass attempts. But rank the wide receivers in the Giants-Saints game.
Malik Neighbors with a torn ACL. Olave 1. Olave 1. Slayton 2. Wandale 3. Shaheed 4.
I will take Wandale over Slayton if it's full PPR. Otherwise, I agree with the order.
I'm so sick of Wandale.
Me too.
This is not the first year that we've bought into a decent stretch from Wandale Robinson. He's just not that good. Can't make any contested catches. For what it's worth, and I don't think it's worth much, the Saints are giving up the second fewest receiving yards to slot receivers. It's one of the stats as I've been kind of, I don't know if I'd call that an advanced stat, but something that I never used to have access to. One of the stats that I have found the least reliable is yards to slot receivers, but so far they've been good there. But I'm just like, what upside does Wandale have? I mean, I guess he could catch a touchdown. He got an end zone target last week.
Both Giants receivers are very dicey plays for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Miami's at Carolina. How do you rank Tedero McMillan, Jalen Waddle, or I guess Rico Dowdle now? And I was originally going to ask Carolina running back, but now it's Dowdle. So McMillan, Waddle, Dowdle.
Waddle, McMillan, Dowdle.
I have it the same way.
Jalen Waddle scored, I think, 28 fantasy points in the only game he's played without Tyreek Hill over the last 3 years. Something crazy. Houston at Baltimore. But I have some concerns about that, by the way. But Houston at Baltimore, is Woody Marks a must start?
Yep.
How does he compare to the replacement running backs?
Ahead of them all.
Wow.
Agreed.
No. Really?
It's close with Rico, but ahead of them all.
Okay, I'll take Dowdle over Woody Marks. You just get this. Are you afraid that it's going to be like, oh, come on, really? They're still using Nick Chubb for 12, 13 carries? That's
I mean, I think that's fair. But so again, the story that I'm writing, just about a third of the way into it, it's matchup plus opportunity for Dowdle is fantastic. Except there's one guy, I didn't really include Marks in the story, but there's one guy who's got a better matchup, and that's Woody Marks. There's certainly the potential of Nick Chubb. And I will say this, you could potentially start Nick Chubb this week. So you're desperate, and I know I looked at one league, Nick Chubb was dropped. I get it. He's been terrible and now maybe getting, replaced, but he still had 15 total touches last week, 13 carries, 2 catches. And they could just decide they're going to use both of these guys to just run through this paper defense that is so beat up. Yeah. So it wouldn't shock me if Nick Chubb still has a good game, but I can't imagine Woody Marks not being a significant part of this and doing as much damage, if not better, not necessarily from a fantasy point wise, but from a touch standpoint, I guess, than he did last week against Tennessee. So there's just so much of a perfect scenario for him that I like him slightly better than Rico Dowdle.
Okay. I have seen Woody Marks take over Dario Gumbawale's role as the third down back each of the last 2 weeks. It wasn't just last week. And then in week 4, Marks played almost 65% of the snaps in the second half. So this coaching staff realized pretty quickly, if we want to run the ball and start doing some good things, we need to get the kid on the field. And I expect that to continue. It wouldn't surprise me if Chubb starts. It wouldn't surprise me if Chubb got, how many carries did you say, 12 or 13 carries?
Yeah, 13 last week and 2 catches.
Yeah, that would not, 2 catches would surprise me, but the 13 carries would not surprise me in this game. And I still think Woody Marks will be better in full PPR by a mile.
Okay. Tennessee's at Arizona. Do you love anyone in this game other than Trey McBride?
Kyler.
Man, I hope so. I hope so. I hope he's good, but every time we trust him, he kind of leaves us hanging a little bit. No, I don't love anybody in this game other than McBride.
Most of the research we do is a week-to-week thing, right? Just trying to figure out how to approach a guy for 1 week. I took a look at Kyler Murray on the whole for the season, and maybe I'll just tease it. It's the last game we're going to talk about, but I'll just say this. Right now, he is the number 21 quarterback per game. It's a little deceiving because basically everyone is, the Carson Wentz's of the world, the guys who have made 2 starts or whatever, they're in that mix too. But his yards per attempt is a career low 5.7. It's horrible. So you expect regression there. He is running more than last year. He is throwing more than last year. These are great things, but he is still missing one key element that used to make him a must start, and that is deep ball completions, explosive plays. He just doesn't get them anymore.
He's got some bad drops too.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm just starting to wonder, when are we just going to drop Kyler Murray? Are we just, he's not far from being a streamer, I think, but not yet, because again, he's throwing more and passing more than ever. Well, you say not this week, but like the Titans have such a bad run defense that teams don't really throw on them that much.
Yeah, but you're now talking about, look, I hope Michael Carter or Amari DiMercado, for everybody that's picking them up, is going to get some reward for this because the matchup is fantastic. But you are talking about a mobile quarterback. You're talking about a scenario where there is a get-right situation here.
Yeah.
And so it should have a good, good game versus great game. That's certainly debatable. Is he going to get you the 22 points that he's had in 2 of his good games, or is he going to get you north of 25? Which is what I believe Sportsline has him projected for. Like, they have him as a top 3 quarterback for this week. So there's a tremendous scenario here for him to go beat up this defense, which I think, like you said, a lot of the reason why this is, we fall into this every year with teams like this, where their run defense is so bad, it sort of masks how bad their pass defense is, that if teams wanted to throw on them, they could. So you have backup running backs here. You have a mobile quarterback who, like you said, is throwing more and running more. Like, he could easily, not necessarily 55 passes away like Bryce Young into a good game. He could have a 25 pass attempt game, get multiple touchdowns, and still give you his 35 to 40 rushing yards and be a very good fantasy quarterback.
This is a get right spot.
Yes. I guess it just
That's
has anybody
exactly
watched?
what it is. And by the way, I should have included Marvin Harrison as a player I love because I have him as a top 20 receiver.
Yeah, me too.
There's 4 teams on bye. Everybody could see Marvin Harrison laying an egg again, but
Right.
I can't help it. There just aren't enough receivers, given injuries to quarterbacks, receivers, etc., where I can look at Marvin Harrison and say, I'd rather start somebody else. I don't think we're in that spot.
Well, we are in the spot where I'm going to tell all these football fans out there about BetMGM and how to boost their bets all season long with the Pro Football Boost Pack. Gives you 3 ways to boost your payout on a winning bet. You log into your BetMGM account and receive your Boost Pack, and then place any pro football bet and apply one of the tokens. Make sure to bet up to the minimum stake, odds, and legs specified on the token. If your boosted bet hits, you'll score a bigger payout. From opening kickoffs to game-winning drives, this Pro Football Boost Pack is your ticket to unforgettable moments this season. Don't wait on the sidelines. Join the action with BetMGM. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms, 21 plus only. All right, because it's the major storyline, I know you guys have pretty much already said it, but I want to throw it out there in a nice little soundbite for everybody. Just do me a favor and rank the replacement running backs. Carter, DeMercado, Dowdle, Rashad White, Sean Tucker. Just give me how you rank those 5 guys. Jamie, you can go first.
Dowdle 1, White 2, Carter 3, DeMercado 4, Tucker 5.
For this week, I have it the exact same way, regardless of format.
Okay.
I
Well-
think just, again, if you've picked up these guys or still have the opportunity to pick up these guys, you have to weigh the long-term potential of what the Cardinal situation is versus the short to potentially long-term situation for the other 2 scenarios. So we know that Trey Benson's out for at least 4 games. So you know you're getting some semblance of production from either Carter or DeMercado over the next 4 games, including this week. You don't know what you're getting from Rico Dowdle. So if you just need a 1-week scenario, to me, Dowdle's the prize. Rashad White was rostered in too many leagues, so I don't know if he's still out there. I would put him second, but in any event, like if you were looking at Dowdle versus the Cardinals, it's a no-brainer for me.
Okay. So Denver's at Philadelphia, and that's where we're going to start. Stat of the game. I mean, I think about this. The Eagles don't usually give up a lot of big plays, and they gave up a 77-yard touchdown to Ibuka and a 72-yard touchdown catch to Bucky Irving. And even with those plays, Baker Mayfield scored 22.9 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. So I think you guys are pretty low on Bo this week. Are we sitting Bo Nix?
I think you should try to.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I don't know if this matters, but Bo Nix throws the 2nd most pass attempts at or behind the line of scrimmage, and the Eagles allow the 6th lowest completion rate and the 4th lowest yards per attempt on those types of throws. They're a really good tackling team. So it's hard to get some yak on them. All right, so Kyler Murray over Bo Nix?
Yes.
Easily.
Daniel Jones over Bo Nix?
Yep.
Easily.
How about Tua and Bryce Young?
I would.
Tua, yes. I don't know if I can get there with Bryce Young.
All right. I mean, Tua without Tyreek Hill, well, it's going to be tough, but that's a good game. I'm looking forward to talking about that one. All right, so how do you feel about J.K. Dobbins? He's been good, but never great. He's usually in the 15-ish point range.
Pretty good.
It's good, but it's never, it's very good for where you drafted him. But starter sit Dobbins.
I would start him, but he is behind both Woody Marks and Rico Dowdle for this week. So that's the point for me where I start to get a little bit skittish about the running back rankings. And so I'd start Dobbins over Carter, for example. I will start Rashad White over Dobbins if he's the guy for Tampa Bay as well. So you saw last week some flashes for RJ Harvey. Who knows how much more they start to give him work, which would make some sense, especially if he's their passing downs guy now. But I think Dobbins still has enough cachet that what he's done through the start of the season warrants being used as a number 2 running back. So it just depends, I think, what you're looking at for your team. In a broad picture, I would prefer to sit him because of the matchup, but I don't know how many people have that luxury.
Cachet. I don't know that we've said that word on here. That's a terrific word. Word of the day.
I think it was on the toilet paper this morning.
And we can't. It was very encouraging with RJ Harvey, but we have to see it again, right?
Yeah, I think just based on the bigger body of work and taking into account who they played last week, like it was smart by Sean Payton to get him going against the Bengals, and now you gotta, I think, sort of try and see what he can do in a tougher matchup. But like they're not going to trust him in some of those situations.
Okay, Dave, you said
they were almost even in snap rate last week, but I believe Harvey had more in the fourth quarter of a blowout game.
Mm-hmm. You said that you liked Marvin Harrison when we talked about the Arizona game, that he was a top 20 guy. How would you compare him to Cortland Sutton?
I'd rather start Harrison, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, Sutton's a great receiver, but I just look at how the cornerbacks have played for Philadelphia. I assume it'll be Quinyon Mitchell and Cortland Sutton.
No, they don't shadow, do they? I mean, they stick with one guy on one side and they have Adoree Jackson get beat on the other side.
Okay, so if they do that, then yeah, Cortland Sutton can have a good game. I'm still starting him as a number 2 receiver, but I would be a little bit nervous about him having a big game.
He's only got a 20.5% target share. It's kind of flown under the radar. He's not getting the targets that I was hoping for. I mean, I would expect him to have more like a 25 to 30% target share, but they've been spreading the ball around. Thankfully, he does make big plays. He scores touchdowns. He's definitely an end zone target. 3 touchdowns for Sutton this year. How about Troy Franklin? How about Marvin Mims? Any interest in these guys?
Put him in the desperation group. Yeah. Mims ahead of Franklin. And if Mims is going to be one of those short area line of scrimmage types of targets, you already talked about how Philadelphia is at defending those types of players. That doesn't make me feel good about Mims.
It just sounds like we're giving the Eagles a lot of respect for their defense, which we should. But I don't know if this is the 2024 Eagles defense. So they've given up, 20 points to Dallas, 17 points at Kansas City, 26 to the Rams. I don't think that the Rams had a defensive touchdown there. And 25 to the Bucks. They gave up those 2 huge plays, which were slightly fluky. So I don't know. I mean, let's see. The spread is 43.5. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites. So that means the Broncos team total is like 19, something like that. 20. No, it's 20 exactly. So it's not a lot. So yeah, I think it seems like you guys just have kind of lowered expectation for the Broncos.
The only guy I would start with any semblance of confidence would be Sutton.
Okay.
Sure. And they've given up big games in PPR to Nakua, Lamb, Ibuka last week. The big play really made a difference for Ibuka. If you think Sutton can make one of those plays or get double-digit targets, then consider him a number 1 receiver. But I think he's more of a number 2.
On the Eagles side of the ball, is Jalen? I mean, are there guys that you would actually start over Jalen Hurts this week, other than Josh Allen and
Fields?
Drake May or Hurts?
I'd still go Hurts. I think this is where, you get back to the conservative Eagles and see a lot of Jalen Hurts on the ground. He doesn't turn the ball over, so you don't have to necessarily fear that so much. I mean, he can, but I can't imagine him having a lot of success with the way that they've thrown the ball against the secondary. This just feels like a bad scenario coming for A.J. Brown. It's hard to trust Devontae Smith. You might get the one passing touchdown from Hurts, which seems to go to Dallas Goedert more so than anybody else. So I think he is who he is, so I'm not going to the waiver wire to replace him. I'm certainly not starting Sam Darnold and Tua Tagovailoa over Jalen Hurts. But if I had Fields available to me and I could carry both quarterbacks, I would start Fields over.
Okay. So Barkley, this actually has not been that tough of a matchup. The Broncos are giving up 4.6 yards per carry to running backs. Barkley has had very tough matchups so far this year. His schedule is going to get easier. And he is averaging 3.1 yards per carry with a long of 16 yards. It really can't be much worse than this for Barkley. And he's still giving you 17.4 PPR fantasy points in 3 of 4 games. Everyone's going to start Barkley. Now, Dave, who do I start over A.J. Brown? How about at running back?
At running back, who are you starting over A.J. Brown?
Am I starting Rico Dowdle? Am I starting
No,
Michael?
I wouldn't go that far. I think
I would.
I don't know if I would. The one guy that might surprise you is David Montgomery. I think Montgomery has a big game. Etienne, Judkins, Genty, those types of guys I would start ahead of A.J. Brown. I would get a little bit nervous going with Marks or Dowdle ahead of him, because there's still the potential of AJ Brown having a huge second half or even a huge whole game. If he can get away, he can line up in the slot a little bit more. That's what he did against the Rams a couple of weeks ago. To me, the problem is not AJ Brown as much as it is Jalen Hurts and the offense just overall not throwing as much as we'd like. But when Jalen Hurts is on, he's going to find a bunch of ways to get the ball to AJ Brown, and he can still be good. I still view him as a number 2 receiver.
It's happened one time so far this season. They had 9 targets last week, and they couldn't connect. And now you're talking about
that. That was on Hurts more than Brown.
And now you're talking about facing Patrick Surtain in that secondary. Like it's easy to get away from AJ Brown this week.
Jamie's got him 24th. Dave has him 19th, and Heath has AJ Brown 20th. So some guys that are in the same range: Xavier Worthy, you guys would start over AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Cortland Sutton over AJ Brown. Teteroa McMillan. And then you get to guys like Jacoby Myers and Keenan Allen, right behind Brown for Dave. Jamie, do you have Jacoby Myers and Keenan Allen over AJ Brown?
Yeah, I just think there's much more upside with those guys this week.
All right.
Allen's been significantly better than AJ Brown and better matchup. And Jacoby Myers has performed better than AJ Brown and better matchup. So it's like I don't want to trust the guy going against that secondary that has not been good.
Just a few more here. How about
there is a great buy low opportunity for AJ Brown because after this it gets a lot easier.
How about Chris Godwin?
That's the one I've gone back and forth with.
Yeah. Right.
Where do you have Godwin?
Sorry.
It might be 23. It might be 25.
25th.
Yeah.
Right now you have.
I know what I did. I moved McConkey ahead of both those guys. Yeah, I like Godwin coming off a game with he just got 10 targets and they're probably chasing points. It feels like there's a better opportunity for Godwin this week.
Starter sit Dallas Goedert. Sorry. Just to wrap it up on Devontae Smith. I mean, it's just if we don't like Brown, Smith is probably not going to have a great game. So, but Dave has him 26.
Well, why? Because if AJ Brown is going to get shadowed by Patrick Surtain everywhere he goes, then that means the matchup will be easier for Devontae Smith. It's just the same issue, which is can Jalen Hurts throw accurately to Devontae Smith?
Vegas is telling us what they think of this game. Like this does not feel like a lot of points coming.
What's the total?
It's 43.5. Like,
oh yeah, that's low.
This is a Jalen Hurts run, Saquon Barkley run, 25 pass attempt game for Jalen Hurts.
Okay. And starter sit Dallas Goedert.
He's in that streaming conversation. Touchdown or bust.
Okay. Which DST do you prefer?
Eagles.
Yep.
And are you trying to get away from them this week?
Nope.
Pick up a streamer?
Not the Eagles. The Broncos is the tougher one because, again, he doesn't typically take a lot of sacks, Jalen Hurts. He doesn't turn the ball over. They don't turn the ball over. And so I don't want to give up on the Broncos by any stretch. But if you're desperate, like your team is struggling and you need to get a win and the Cardinals are sitting there, the Browns are sitting there, like you may have to move on. That being said, the Rams defense was supposed to be good against a very beat up San Francisco offense, and they struggled. And the Packers defense was supposed to be great against the Cowboys last week, and they struggled. So, you might as well just put them in the category of start your studs and see what happens, because I think the Broncos defense is still among the best in the league.
All right, let's take a break. And I just want to point out, though, that the Eagles defense, the DST, they've only been good because they've had 2 touchdowns. And one or both of them were on field goal blocks. I can't remember. I think just one. So they have 5 sacks this year. They've got injury.
I do think that if you're looking at, again, the streaming options, you could drop the Eagles for the streaming options.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
For the Cardinals. But they also have 2 games coming up against the Giants.
Yeah, they're going to lose. All right. I'm not going to let the audience decide my punishment for those games, though. We're going to take a break and talk about Tampa and Seattle, or Tampa Bay and Seattle after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Baker Mayfield has scored 19.7 or more fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues in 10 straight games, dating back to 2024. He scored 22.9 or more in 8 of his last 10 games. He just always seems to find a way to produce. You guys have Baker Mayfield as a low-end starter, around 12th. So Baker Mayfield or Dak Prescott at the Jets.
I think it's
Slightly
close.
lean toward Baker.
And I slightly lean toward Dak.
All right. Baker Mayfield or Tua Tagovailoa.
Baker.
All right. So again, he's a low-end starter. And we already talked about the Tampa Bay running backs, so we won't go that far into it. But I mean, when Rashad White was out last year, both Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving had huge games. When Bucky Irving left the game early last year, Rashad White had 17 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown, plus 2 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown, 25 fantasy points. And they didn't really use Sean Tucker in that game. So you have to be a little cautious. But, you know, how close to where you would hypothetically rank Bucky Irving this week if he were playing are you ranking Rashad White? In other words, you know, what's the difference between Bucky?
Healthy Bucky?
Yeah, like if
not this version of coming out of a walking boot.
Right.
Healthy Bucky would have been top 10.
Healthy Bucky would have been like top 15-ish because it's not like he was running very well to begin with. But that's not where I'm going to put Rashad White.
Where are you going to put Rashad White?
Low end number 2 running back. I think we've talked about it enough. He belongs behind Rico Dowdle, but ahead of the Cardinals running backs, way ahead of like the Chiefs and Commanders running backs. He's got an opportunity to catch 4 passes in total 70 yards.
Yeah.
Which is
I would have
I know what a low end running back can do. A low end starting running back can do, and he's got a shot to score too. I think he'll work near the goal line for Tampa if they get
Rashad White would be my favorite running back in this game.
Oh,
over Walker.
Yes.
The Buccaneers have not allowed. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me get the stat right. Dating back to 2024, only one running back has more than 43 rushing yards against the Bucs in their last 13 games. One running back has more than 43 rushing yards against Tampa Bay in their last 13 games. It was worth saying it twice. It's a tough matchup.
Do we know who's playing for Tampa's defense? Because they took on a ton of injuries last week. A lot of them were in the secondary.
Yeah, you're right.
Now with their practice report, it looks like they'll be at full strength.
Good.
I don't know if I can go Rashad White over Walker, though. Like, I get it. Matchup's tough. Walker's going to share. And Seattle, for what it's worth, should throw a lot. I don't know if I can get there because it just feels like there's way more upside for Walker than there is for Rashad White.
This is a tough game. There are a lot of really tough ones to get out here. So,
it started right over Dobbins too. Excuse me.
All right, so we're gonna preview this game as if Bucky's out. So, how many of the wide receivers in this game would you start over Rashad White? JSN, obviously. Who else?
And
Ibuka. Okay.
I would consider Godwin. I think I'd go Godwin over him too.
Would you start Godwin over Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and Sean Tucker?
I would go Rashad White and Ken Walker over Godwin. I would start Godwin over Charbonnet.
And Tucker.
Yeah, I would start Godwin over Charbonnet and Tucker too.
Tucker to me is a desperation play.
Okay.
I think I could bring myself to start Godwin over Walker, but that one's close.
Dave, you said that you think the Seahawks are going to throw a lot. And that's been my hope this week for Darnold, because teams throw a lot on the Bucs. I talked about it on Tuesday's show. They've faced 4 very run-heavy teams, and all 4 of those teams have been much more pass-heavy than they usually are in the 1 week that they faced Tampa Bay.
So that's your theory is they're just more pass-heavy than normal because they're only seeing 31.5 pass attempts per game.
The Bucs?
Yes.
Yeah. None of them have ranked higher than, I want to say, 12th or 13th on that given week in pass rate, but all of them have taken a big jump from what they usually do.
Okay, because you kept saying this, and I went and looked, and I was like, wow, they're only giving up 31.5 pass attempts. I don't know what Adam's necessarily talking about, but this makes sense that they throw more than those teams throw more than they typically do.
Right.
Now,
You faced Atlanta, Houston, the Jets, and the Eagles. So
but the Jets one's weird because that was Taylor.
Yeah, but still, they're not going to be pass heavy with Tyrod Taylor. But the other thing is, like, Last week, the Cardinals went into week 4, having seen 47.3 quarterback pass attempts per game. And Sam Darnold threw 26 passes.
He's averaging 25 pass attempts per game.
So I've become a little less optimistic about this prospect, which doesn't matter for JSN. Obviously, it might matter for Kupp, and it might matter for Darnold if you need him. But
I do think though, if you just compare the averages and those 6 more attempts per game, that could really matter.
Yeah, absolutely, because he's leading the NFL in yards per attempt, tied with Lamar Jackson. So what do you think about 20 fantasy points from Darnold?
So he's been, in the last 3 games, he's been 18.5 to 20.2 or something like that. He's just been living in that low end number 1 range. And so now you're talking about a somewhat favorable matchup where you could see an uptick in pass attempts, and maybe that leads to some better production. But I don't want to buy all the way into what Sam Darnold has done, because yes, he's playing very well, but that just hasn't translated to significant fantasy production. So I would start him over Bo Nix, for example. I would start him over like Trevor Lawrence and those type of guys. Like, that's not saying very much. I don't know. Like, there's so much difference between, and maybe wrong saying this, but so much difference between Tua and Bryce Young and some of these other streaming guys that we've talked about, because some of these other situations, matchups are better. Some of these guys are performing better from a fantasy perspective than Darnold, but I think he's a very safe floor play of somebody who can get you in that 18 plus point per game range and sort of save you a little bit if you're looking for the Lamar replacement or trying to figure out, your bye week situation as well.
Cooper Kupp is a no, right? I mean, just hasn't been good enough.
He's the one that, what's the phrase? All tide lifts all boats, or like what?
Rising tide lifts all boats or something.
Yeah, like if Darnold throws more, then this should benefit Cooper Kupp as much as anybody, because that's been sort of the problem for him. And I do think if you're talking desperation plays, he falls in that category. So does Torrey Horton, because we've seen 2 touchdowns for him on the season, and he could certainly catch one against this team. But it's tough to say Cooper Kupp is safe by any stretch.
Dave, give me your quick thoughts on Chris Godwin.
Love the way that he looked last week, especially as the game went on. I was actually surprised by how many downfield targets he got from Baker Mayfield. You'd think that a guy coming back from the injury that he had would only get, passes thrown to him inside of 10 yards. It wasn't the case. And if Tampa struggles to run the ball in this game, which is possible, Seattle's run defense is pretty good too, then Godwin shapes up as someone who can win on all those short targets and maybe pick up a couple of big plays along the way. I'm a fan. I really am trying to figure out a way to get him into my top 24 wide receiver in PPR.
The one concern I have, you brought this up yesterday or Wednesday, I don't know which show it was, which I thought was great, that he's such a great buy low candidate, because I actually don't love the way that they're using him right now. I think once they get Evans back on the field and he goes back to being their slot receiver, then we're looking at maybe tremendous production. I think he said he could be their best receiver.
But there's just too many mouths to feed at that point.
Well,
I'm so nervous about that.
Well, that's a different conversation. I think just in terms of usage for Godwin, that would be better than the way that they're using him right now. This just hasn't been the best way he's produced in his career when he's been a primary outside receiver.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna sit the tight ends. I'm just got to finish this game here, so I'm gonna read some questions from the chat. Ready? Godwin or Addison?
Godwin.
Baker or Dart?
Baker.
Baker or May?
May.
Godwin, Addison, or Jordan Mason?
Godwin.
Would I take Godwin over Mason in non-PPR? I think I might.
They're down 3 offensive linemen. They just
no, I get it. I get it.
Charbonnet or Mason is our next question.
They're very close. I'd still go Mason, but
Charbonnet or Mason?
Yeah,
Mason.
Ken Walker or Jalen Waddle? Half PPR.
Waddle.
It's Waddle there.
Godwin or Diggs?
Godwin.
I like what I saw from Diggs too. I might have Diggs a little bit higher.
Walker, Jordan Mason, or Rico Dowdle? Oh, who sits? Sit one.
Mason.
Henderson or Charbonnet in non-PPR?
Charbonnet.
All right.
I don't love either one, but I might go Travion.
All right, Giants are at the Saints. Here's the issue with the Saints. The Saints have really not been that bad, but they cannot complete a pass down the field. Spencer Rattler is 3 of 15 on pass attempts of 20 or more air yards for 80 yards, which is horrible. So that's been an issue for them. And the Giants have been a team that's been susceptible to that. I don't know that the Saints can take advantage of it, which is why I guarantee the Giants are going to win. Jackson Dart, you guys have 15th. Every quarterback that the Saints have faced have scored at least 20.7 fantasy points. That's Kyler, Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen. He doesn't have Malik Neighbors. I don't know.
He's in that range that Jamie talked about of quarterbacks that could get anywhere between, let's call it 17 to 21 fantasy points. I think Dart is especially there because of what he does with his legs and how willing he and Brian Dable and Mike Kafka are to let him use his legs. They know that they've got to make that a huge part of their offense. And so those rushing yards and maybe a rushing touchdown on top of it, that stuff matters a ton. And we know this already for fantasy. So if you're really struggling at quarterback, Dart's a good bye week replacement.
2 running quarterbacks against them, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, both ran for at least 38 yards. Dart's coming off a game where he ran for 54 yards and had 10 carries.
Mm-hmm.
So based on how this game should unfold, he'll probably get some semblance of 150 to 200 yards passing from Slayton and Wandale and Theo Johnson, whoever else, Scatterboo, whatever they do. So not a big passing day, but a slightly better passing stat line than last week with hopefully a similar rushing line.
Cam Scatterboo is a start. Scatterboo or a guy I know you guys like, Rico Dowdle.
Scatterboo.
It's close, but Scatterboo.
All right, so get Scatterboo in your lineup.
I mean, he had 27 total touches last week.
Yeah, I know.
Hard to get away from that.
Did he really have that many total touches?
Yeah, 25 carries.
Holy moly, yeah, that's a lot. Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton, did they crack your top 30?
Slayton barely, Robinson just behind.
Robinson barely, Slayton just behind him.
What I was encouraged by, it was over 100 routes for Darius Slayton last year with Malik Neighbors off the field, including 2 games that Neighbors missed. And on those routes, he wasn't going. His route depth was down. His ADOT was down to much more reasonable levels. He was a more reliable profile in terms of receiver. And he's 50% rostered right now, Darius Slayton. Theo Johnson has been basically the least efficient tight end by a mile since entering the NFL, but he had a touchdown last week. I don't know. He's not
I think you can do better.
You can do better.
I think you can go to I like Tommy Tremble better.
Spencer Rattler is outside the top 20. Alvin Kamara. All right, Scatterboo or Kamara?
Scatterboo.
Even in PPR.
Let me tell you something. The Giants give up 6 yards per carry to running backs, second worst in the NFL. So I went back and I looked at Alvin Kamara against really bad run defenses last year, and to my surprise, he actually was very good in terms of efficiency. He averaged 5.9 yards per carry or better in almost all of those matchups. The only one he didn't was one where he left early with an injury after 5 carries. So even he is capable of doing well against these terrible run defenses. But hopefully he hasn't lost his goal line role. That's the concern here. So Dowdle or Kamara?
Kamara.
By a nose.
All right. Kamara is also a good number 2 running back ahead of Ken Walker.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Chris Olave or Kamara?
I'll take Olave in PPR.
Double checking, and I've got Kamara a little bit ahead of Olave.
Chris Olave or Scatterboo? I know it's going to be Scatterboo for Dave, but how about for you, Jamie?
Scatterboo.
All right. Let's see if I have any. We good with Juwan Johnson? We're going to fire him up again?
Yep.
For now, we got to see what the injury report says and who else is healthy for the Saints tight ends. But right now, yes.
And Rashid Shaheed is just not getting enough targets. 3 straight games with 5 or 6 targets. Almost every wide receiver that's gotten to 7 targets against the Giants has done very well. Keenan Allen was the only one who didn't. That was last week. So Shaheed is like a number 4 wide receiver, basically. Borderline number 3.
Yep. Bye-week replacement type.
So you're sticking with Juwan Johnson over Darren Waller and Tommy Tremble and et cetera?
I am.
For now.
All right, let me see if I have any questions from the chat. I do. Chris Godwin or Wandale Robinson?
Godwin.
Darius Slayton or T. Higgins, PPR?
Still Higgins for now, but it's close.
Agreed.
Darius Slayton or Amari DiMarcado?
I'll take Slayton.
Hey, Slayton.
Slayton or Michael Carter. That's from me.
I'll go Carter.
I think I have Carter higher. I'd have to double check.
Juwan Johnson or Brenton Strange?
I have
Right
Carter
now it's Juwan.
barely higher. Johnson over Strange as of now.
Scadaboo or Judkins?
Judkins, but it's close.
I'll take Winshawn.
It's a good one. Kamara or Waddle?
I would go with Waddle.
I believe I have Waddle higher.
All right. And would you start a DST in this matchup?
Giants.
That would be the one. Low end DST.
Really bad. Both of these defenses have been bad, but Giants were good last week. Both teams have been a good matchup for DSTs. Miami at Carolina. Stat to know, but I'm not going to call it the stat of the game because I think we can do better. The Carolina Panthers have the lowest pressure rate in the NFL, and they have 2 sacks in 4 games. So then here's your stat of the game. Jalen Waddle, 1 game without Tyreek Hill in 2023, 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets, 28.2 fantasy points at
Jets,
the
right?
Yep. The Panthers actually allow the second fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Not sure I am buying that. Do you think the Dolphins have a big game offensively without Tyreek Hill?
I think it's very possible because of how bad this Panthers defense is. Stephon Diggs took the other cornerback for Carolina. Mike Jackson is his name. He took him to school on a bunch of plays last week. And so if he's getting some big numbers against the secondary, you can just imagine what Waddle can do. I'm a fan of Waddle. He's a top 12-ish type of receiver.
Oh, wow. Top 12-ish. Okay. And then Tua, where do you guys have Tua ranked?
Low end number 1 quarterback, I think 14th.
Yep.
14th for you, 13th for
I'm
Dave.
a little higher. Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing.
Okay. Darnold, I think you guys said Tua over Darnold, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Slightly. Yep.
All right, it'll be interesting to see. What's discouraging to me is that after the first 2 weeks when he was throwing the ball downfield, that has stopped. He has not thrown the deep ball hardly at all in the last 2 weeks. I don't know. Yeah. Look, Tyreek was getting you a consistent 14, 15 points per game in PPR. Maybe Waddle just steps into that role, but the explosiveness is gone right now. Missing for the Dolphins offense. Devon Achane is a start. Ollie Gordon, desperation play. You got to hope that he falls into the end zone. All right, so we talked about desperation plays. I wanted to bring this name up. We haven't talked about it all week. Do you know the guy that actually had the big boost in routes run and snaps after Tyreek's injury? It was not
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Exactly. It was not Malik Washington. Washington had kind of his normal role. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine played a lot more. So 18-team leagues. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Played a lot more, had 1 target in the game.
Yeah, it's true. But he was out there. We'll see what happens. All right, Darren Waller is the most added player in CBS Sports Leagues, or at least he was yesterday. I can't believe it. He's up to 88% rostered.
Really?
You can't believe that the guy caught 2 touchdowns and his teammate had his leg destroyed is not the most added player.
Right.
No, I can believe that he's the most added player. I can't believe it's 88%. He's rostered in more leagues than Juwan Johnson. You know, people were pretty hesitant to buy into Juwan Johnson. They have fully bought into Darren Waller. I can't blame them. He looked pretty good.
He did.
And he's going to play more.
Play more.
He said he's going to play more. It's a great matchup.
I would expect him to play more.
Yeah, he ran 10 routes last week. So what do we think? I mean, he's a must-start guy this week, Dave?
I think he's in the conversation of being not a must-start, but certainly a top 12 tight end. Not because I think he can catch 4 or 2 touchdowns on 4 passes or 4 targets, but because I think he'll play more. And I think he gives this offense just something a little bit different, especially since you mentioned it. They're not going to try downfield shots as much. The Panthers play a ton of zone coverage. I believe they play a lot of cover 3 specifically. That's going to open the door for a lot of short and intermediate routes for Miami. And without pressure on Tua, we're going to see a lot of those short completions, and that's right up Waller's alley.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. Who's the best tight end in this game?
Darren Waller.
Waller.
Who's the best wide receiver in this game?
Jalen Waller.
Tedero McMillan or Rico Dowdle?
I'll take McMillan in PPR.
I will too.
You guys are not. It's such a good matchup for Bryce Young, but you can't buy in yet.
It's just so hard to trust him. He's had one good game so far this season. It was when he threw 55 pass attempts against the Cardinals in that, comeback effort in the fourth quarter. He's been 12.3 points or less in the other 3 games. And so, yes, the matchup is absolutely fantastic. Every quarterback has been 29 points or more against the Dolphins. So hopefully he has a good game. But I think he's just in that same scenario, same boat as Jackson Dart and Sam Darnold and Tua, and just, guys that have left you wanting more, or at least in the case of Dart, haven't shown you enough yet. And so, can you trust him? Probably not. Do you need to trust him? Maybe so, because of what your quarterback dilemmas may be. So I know for me in a couple of 14 and 16 team leagues, like I'm starting Darnold in one, I'm starting Young in another, just because I lost Burrow and haven't found the right replacement option yet. In the super flex league where I have 75 quarterbacks, I'm starting Bryce Young as one of them. So, it's not by, oh my God, I want to start him because his matchup is great. It's, oh, I'll start him because the matchup is great.
It's a risk versus reward thing. The matchup, we can keep talking about it if you really want to, but it's the only thing that's in favor for Bryce Young. His play hasn't been great outside of, I think it was just either the second half or the fourth quarter against Arizona, and his offensive line's in rough shape. There is a big downside here to Bryce Young, and if you're squeamish about that, it's much easier to go with Darnold, Dart, Tua ahead of both Darnold and Dart. There are options that you have, but if you're out of options, hey, at least you've got the matchup, and fingers crossed that Bryce Young doesn't get benched.
This is another team that can't hit big plays. They just stink at them. And when I watch them, it's just short passes. They look like they're in rhythm, whatever, but then the drives stall. They just cannot make an explosive play. And it's hurting McMillan. And McMillan, by the way, has only 3 of his team's 25 red zone targets, 1 of his team's 10 green zone targets, 2 of his team's 11 end zone targets. This needs to change. Quite frankly, he's had a pretty damn good schedule so far. Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta, New England. And he's had more than 12 points once in full PPR and hasn't caught a touchdown yet.
Yeah, that makes me like him less.
I know, but you see the talent. Like, he looks really good, and he gets a decent amount of targets, 8 or more targets every game. None of those matchups have been as good as this matchup. Actually, they've actually 7th best against wide receivers. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't.
Well, there's 3 receivers who have done well against them, and 2 of them have had at least 8 targets, and that's kind of the hope for what you're looking at for McMillan, because he's getting 8 targets a game or more. So it was week 1 was Michael Pittman, and last week it was Garrett Wilson. They only had 8 targets. It's not like it's hey, you hit 8 targets, you're going to do well. So clearly don't take that into account. But it's the only 2 guys that have had more than, I think, 6 targets against them. The other receiver to score against them was Shakir. So it's also not like they faced a gauntlet of great passing attacks so far.
Yeah.
And now you have a running back situation. While we'll sit here and say we like Rico Dowdle, it's clearly not the best running situation. Dave mentioned it. The offensive line's been banged up. We know they haven't been great since they lost the 2 interior guys. So can they run against the Dolphins? Well, if they can't, then it's maybe a little bit more on Bryce Young. Maybe we get not 55 attempts, but we get a lot of volume, and that lends itself to not only McMillan having a good game, tight ends have killed this team. And Tremble's coming off a game where he didn't just have 8 targets. Their tight end group had 10 targets. And so they're leaning on this position group right now with Tremble stepping up without Sanders there. So he's a great desperation play, not just as a tight end, but as a flex if you're stuck.
Okay. And Tommy Tremble, yeah, Heath has him 8th. Dave and Jamie are a little more cautious with Tommy Tremble. They have him 14th for Jamie, 17th for Dave. He's 4% rostered and has a chance here to have a good game for sure, because the Dolphins are giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends.
I'd start him over Mark Andrews. I'd start him over both the Browns tight ends.
I dig the Browns tight ends for sure. What I liked about the game last week, 6 of the 8 targets came from Bryce Young. 5 of those 6, he was the primary read on the play.
Okay. Ertz or Tremble?
I have
Ertz now with Daniels back, especially with Depot banged up.
Right.
All right, let's go. We have 2 games left here. Houston at Baltimore. From 2020 to 2022, the Ravens went 4-9 without Lamar Jackson and averaged 16.2 points per game. But all of their quarterbacks were, running quarterbacks. Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson, Anthony Brown, mostly Huntley. So that's for the most part there. So Rush is going to throw the ball more than those guys. But that brings us to our stat of the game. Puka Nacua is the only wide receiver to score more than 12.9 PPR fantasy points against Houston. That includes Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka, and Brian Thomas Jr. Start or sit Zay Flowers.
Start, but he's on the cusp of like where the receivers start to get a little bit dicey, at least in my rankings. So he's like wide receiver 20.
Yeah, a shade lower for me, but in that low end number 2 wide receiver range. I like that he got a lot of targets from Cooper Rush last week. I hate that his ADOT was under 2 yards per throw. That's not going to fly.
Who are the easy starts in this Texans-Ravens game?
Texans DST.
Start there.
Nico Collins.
Sure.
Yep.
I think everybody's
Derrick
still going
Henry?
to start Derrick Henry. I don't think the expectations should be the same, but you're still going to start him. I think Woody Marks
have
is
a
the number 2 running back.
Yeah, I have a prediction. Hold on. I don't remember the rankings. I think Jamie has Woody Marks ahead of Derrick Henry in PPR.
I tell you right now, it's Henry, Marks, Dowdle, and I really want to move Henry behind those 2 guys. This feels like a terrible game coming for him.
I see what you're saying here. Let's take a look at the matchup here.
Sure.
The Texans are 13th against running backs. They allow 4.16 yards per carry to running backs, so it's not that necessarily. But if you're worried about the score, I don't know. I mean, the Texans are 2-point favorites, so it should be a competitive game.
We got news.
What do we got?
Bucky's out.
Bucky's out. Okay, well, we were prepared for that. He is also in danger of missing next week, according to Jeremy Fowler. All right, so Derrick Henry, or Zay Flowers. Let's start with that.
I would start Flowers in PPR.
I'd start Henry.
And desperation play, Justice Hill. I mean, we've seen it now the last 2 games. He's been very involved in the passing game, 8 catches on 10 targets in those 2 games. So it wouldn't shock me if they're behind. Not that this Texans offense is great, but this Ravens defense is bad. And so you could see Justice Hill in a lot of fourth quarter playing time.
I think that happens if the Texans build a big lead. I don't know if the Texans can build a big lead. And I think it makes all the sense in the world for the Ravens to lean on Derrick Henry as much as possible.
Justice Hill in his career has had 6 or more targets in 6 games. 5 of them were losses. So just, and they're not usually underdogs, at least to a team like the Texans. How do we feel about CJ Stroud this week compared to Bryce Young and Tua?
He's right there with them. I mean, again, you're talking about great matchup. They're so beat up. He's coming off his best game in what seems like forever. Do you know the last time that he's had back-to-back 20-point games?
Rookie year?
How deep into his rookie year?
Was it like right at the beginning of the rookie year? Could it be there?
His last time that he's had consecutive games. Now, this is taking out the playoffs because his rookie year, week 18, he had a 20-point game, and the first week of the playoffs he did. But the last time in the regular season was weeks 3 and 4 of 2022.
Wow.
Damn.
All right, I'm going to ask you more about Derrick Henry here because he's obviously Derrick Henry. Jalen Waddle, Tedero, McMillan, Derrick Henry.
Waddle.
The 2 receivers in PPR.
I think I'll take Henry over McMillan, but Waddle goes over.
How about Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Derrick Henry?
Johnston easily, and I'll take Keenan Allen over him as well.
I will take QJ over Henry. I'll take Henry over the other 2 receivers.
What if it were half PPR?
I'll still take the receivers. Like this is what you want to avoid with Derrick Henry. This is what we all wanted to avoid with Derrick Henry was the offense struggling, them chasing points. We just didn't expect it to come as a result of Lamar Jackson being injured. So you take away and again, I'll Azer stat this. You take away the touchdown run last week or 2 weeks ago, it was miserable for him. Last week he struggled. He's fumbling the ball. The offensive line is banged up. The defense is going to stink. Like this could be awful.
I think Ronnie Stanley is practicing though.
He's
so
practicing. We don't know if that means he's going to play.
Tyler Linderbaum is also a full participant yesterday. So I don't know how beat up the offensive line is. We'll see about Stanley.
If you just go, so forget about the backup running backs because I know a lot of people are going to be skittish to do that. Judkins should be starting over him. Scadaboo should be starting over him. Montgomery this week should be starting over him. Like there's a lot of scenarios where Derrick Henry should be on your bench. Clearly, Javonte Williams should be starting over him this week. So if you have the stones to do it and you want to start Dowdle over him and Woody Marks over him, I'm not going to argue it.
I think he's going to get 20 carries.
And if he's getting 20 carries, you know what the upside is.
This is the first time in his career since that breakout Thursday night game against Jacksonville when his entire career changed that he's gone 3 straight games with 13 or fewer carries. It's ridiculous.
They're desperate for a win. This is their primary path to bring home a win. If I thought Houston could put up a ton of points, I'd be right there with you, Jamie.
But it's not just
in fact,
that.
I'd be lower.
This defense is fantastic.
Houston's defense is good, but I think if that offensive line is good and it's Derrick Henry and we know what he's capable of doing, we know he can beat 8 in the box. It is tough. It is tough to bench a guy like that.
Oh,
especially
I'm not saying bench.
Like
You got
weighing him against Woody Marks or Rico Dowdle. Man, that takes some serious stones, dude. I get it, and it could end up working out.
All right, let's move on here. We talked about Woody Marks earlier in the show during the one question for each game. And
Christian Kirk, if you're desperate this week, could be interesting. Just again with this defense being as bad as this.
Yeah, why are you? Give me 30 seconds on why you're so low on Mark Andrews. Jamie, you have him 16th. Dave 13th.
Again, Texans defense and Cooper Rush. It's just I don't want to trust that. Plus, I think likely gets more involved this week. I like that he had 7 for 30 last week. If that's what we're banking on for Mark Andrews, then I don't know. This again, 40.5 is what the total is. The expected total. These two offenses could absolutely, be. This is probably, and I hope I'm wrong, but the most boring game of the week. Like, you're looking at.
No, you're wrong. It's Giants Saints.
But that feels like it's going to be more fun.
I don't know.
I think this game's got fun potential too.
All right, Tennessee's at Arizona as our last game
this could
here.
Be the stinker of the week.
Yeah, this game could suck. Tony Pollard, we haven't talked about him, but he's got 7 catches in his last 2 games, 5 catches in his last
5,
games.
and he didn't look terrible last week. He just didn't get a lot of work.
Cardinals do have a good run defense, but Pollard is another guy who's a feature back. So how does he compare to Derrick Henry and Rico Dowdle and Woody Marks and et cetera?
For me, he's behind those guys, and that's without Tyjae Spears being activated.
Right. We're not quite expecting that. It could happen. We'll reevaluate if it does.
I'd start Dowdle and Marks and Dowdle over Pollard. He's right after those guys.
Yep. Where are you at with Pollard? Is Pollard your favorite? Pollard is my favorite running back in this game.
Yes.
Now.
And I would start Pollard over Walker, for example, this week.
I'm supposed to ask that, Dave. Man, stole my line.
Sorry.
Okay. Cam Ward, just letting you know. There have been 40 rookie quarterbacks since 2010 who have been passer rating qualified from weeks 1 through 4. Among those 40, Cam Ward ranks 38th in yards per attempt, 38th in completion rate, 36th in touchdown rate. He has been one of the worst rookie quarterbacks that we've seen since 2010 through his first 4 games. But you know who was worse? Bo Nix was worse. So there is hope. Alec Iomanor, or let's say like Darius Slayton, Rashid Shaheed, those guys.
I'll take Slayton over Iomanor over Rashid.
I think I'm with you.
Sit the Tennessee tight ends, I assume.
Yes.
Chig's interesting, but there's so many better streaming options this week.
You could stash Gunnar Helm in Dynasty.
We talked about Kyler Murray at one question for each game. He is a top 10 quarterback this week for everyone. He's top 7 for Jamie and Heath. So these guys like Kyler Murray.
Top 3 for Sportsline.
I'm a little hesitant on it, but
I get it.
Arizona running backs. You prefer Michael Carter?
Yes.
Yes. This week, yes. Moving forward, maybe not.
I think it's a game-by-game basis, just based on how you expect the game to go. But this game, 7.5-point favorites. They're at home. Titans just couldn't stop the combination of Woody Marks and Nick Chubb. Like, this should be a game where Michael Carter performs at a higher level. And I don't know where I saw this, but I think the best comp for this is what, like, people are asking. DeMercado was active. He was playing. Carter was on the practice squad. It's very similar to how the Commanders treated Chris Rodriguez. Carter does not play on special teams. So you take him from not playing to, as he said, the starter. We'll see if that's true.
He said that, yeah.
He can be the starter, sure.
But
if he's the running down back, 1st and 10 is a running down potentially.
It's more of like an operational standpoint for how they viewed him. So they may have said, okay, their depth chart started the season, Connor 1, Benson 2, Carter 3, DeMercado 4. But in the roles that they play, DeMercado active on game days versus Carter.
And I think the expectation is Carter on mostly first downs, some second downs, DeMercado passing downs. That includes third downs. I don't know. At first, I thought it was a slam dunk that DeMercado would handle short yardage. I'm not sure at this point. I don't know. It could come down to just which down is it. And that's the way that the Cardinals roll. But this matchup is so juicy that both of them could end up with 10 PPR points. Carter just has a little bit more upside to have one of those breakaway runs.
The thing you don't want to see is Knight working in and
Yeah.
being a third guy.
Which
Yeah,
is
you know what? I think if you've got a free roster spot, you never know, because if Michael Carter stinks, and I watched tape last night of him from last year. I wish I had watched that before I put in my fab bids. I would have gone a little bit lower. He's not that good. None of them are really. Maybe they go to Knight. He's listed as Zonovan Knight on CBS. So
isn't Knight who bumped Carter off the Jets roster once upon a time?
Maybe. By the way, this is also a good matchup for Marvin Harrison Jr., who's top 16 for Dave and Jamie. Yep. And Tennessee gives up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They've been a really, really good matchup. And I don't even think they see that many targets typically. So, Marvin Harrison Jr., this would be a week to start him. Start Trey McBride, and definitely start that Cardinals DST, which is also one of the most added players or units in CBS leagues. By the way, Michael Carter is only 50% rostered. So the CBS fantasy players have chosen DeMarcado over Carter. We chose Carter over DeMarcado. We'll see. We'll see who's right.
DeMarcado over Carter long term.
I mean, I'd still go Carter, but if you were going to pick up one, who would it have been?
It would have been DeMarcado, because I'm thinking long term.
Carter.
All right.
And by the way, Rico Dowdle, before the show started, was 55% rostered on our site. So,
okay, get him. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll talk to you on the mailbag at noon Eastern, or if you hear it on Saturday. Have a great weekend. See ya.
And I'll answer the question you asked on the mailbag. I'll remember.
Okay.